It was a long time in coming. From the Women's Rights Convention in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York, to the passage of the 19th Amendment in August of 1920, women in the United States fought for the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. These were two of the early leaders of the movement. They and others like them thought and fought for the right of women to have a say in the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But male politicians, knowing that women had little influence over their actions, and thus the legislation that they passed, or didn't, continued to ignore women and their efforts to exact change in our society. At the turn of the 20th century, heading into what is now known as the progressive era in American history, women organized and created two groups who vocally and publicly declared that women should be allowed to vote. The National American Woman Suffrage Association was actually formed in 1890 and led over the next 20 years, first by Anthony, then Carrie Chapman Catt, and finally Anna Howard Shaw. It was the forerunner of today's League of Women Voters. A more militant group was the National Woman's Party, NWP, under the leadership of Alice Paul. They have the distinction of being the first group of Americans to picket the White House. The combined efforts of the two groups led to the passage of the 19th Amendment, seen as the largest extension of voting rights in our nation's history. But the effort was not without its flaws. Black women were discriminated against because leaders feared reprisal from white Southerners. In 1913, Black suffragettes were relegated to the end of a suffrage parade in Washington, D.C. The National American Woman Suffrage Association would not include Black women or their suffrage groups in their work, but Black women fought back, founding the National Association of Colored Women in 1896 in Washington, D.C. Mary Church Terrell, born in 1864 to former slaves, was their leader and went on to help found the NAACP in 1909. Black women faced both racism and sexism, but they weren't about to give up on gaining their rightful place among voters. Ida B. Wells, a journalist and anti-lynching advocate, helped found the Alpha Suffrage Club in 1913 in Chicago. In her speech, Ain't I a Woman, at the 1858 Women's Convention in Akron, Ohio, Sojourner Truth put forth the idea that gender equality and an end to slavery were partners in making a more perfect union. All of these women knew in their hearts and minds that voting is important. Do you? When you vote, you do more than select your favorite candidate for a particular office. Those elected need to be people who have the best interests of the people in mind. Voting means you're taking an active part in deciding issues related to healthcare, immigration, equal opportunity, voting rights, infrastructure, jobs, education, Social Security, neighborhood safety, taxes, and more. Don't waste this opportunity. Want a say in how your tax money is spent? Vote. Elected officials now may be making decisions that affect your future. Want to voice your opinion about that? Vote. Climate change, healthcare, care about them? Vote. Education is supported by tax dollars and needs to be monitored by the people. One way to do that? Vote. You have the right to be a part of the political decision-making process. Don't underestimate what an enormous privilege this is. We, the people, the voters, can only have a representative democracy that functions positively for us if we vote. Democracy is not a spectator sport. We could go on, but we won't. We'll simply close with this. You can register online at indianavoters.com. You'll need a driver's license or government ID. You can also register at various events around town. You can find out more about candidates for offices in our area and on the state and national scene at vote411.org. The deadline to register to vote in this fall's election is Monday, October 5th. Get registered, learn about the issues, and get out there and vote. Don't let Granny down.